Hello, and thank you so much for joining us. My name is Tyler. I'm part of the Precisely team here. Just want to welcome you all to today's webinar, Empowering Artificial Intelligence and Machine Learning with Data Enrichment. We're thrilled that you're taking time out of your day to join us. Before we kick things off, a quick reminder, if you have any questions or comments throughout today's session, you can use the Q&A chat box to send those our way. And if we don't tackle it today in this session, we'll be sure to follow up with you. And with that, I'll hand it over to Julia.
Hi, my name is Julia Rosa. I'm a sales engineer here with Precisely, and I specialize particularly in our data side of business. Today, I'm going to be talking to you about how you can use data enrichment to further empower your business through AI and machine learning. So, with the prevalence of AI in the modern world, the odds are that you or your business have already really begun incorporating it into your long-term strategy. In fact, 91% of leading businesses have investments in AI, from anywhere from the simple chatbots and assistants to model training and aiding in the making of business decisions. We know AI means artificial intelligence, but that term can be used so broadly. It really covers a whole host of different models and functions, anything from your basic reliable function using any sort of pipeline with low error tolerance to your super intelligent entities that are really require specialized expertise and can cost billions of dollars. The gap between the costs and software needs of a basic function versus a super intelligent entity can be enormous, to the tune of billions of dollars. So how can you really improve your artificial intelligence and the role that it takes in your business? At the basic level, you can improve your data. You can spend money on any number of specialists and softwares, but at the core of artificial intelligence, you have to feed it with high quality, regular data. So with that, let's talk about what happens when you don't have that. When you're starting with a basis of data that's filled with errors and inconsistencies. You've probably heard the usual adage, garbage in, garbage out. With AI, any garbage really gets that trash everywhere. So there was an example of a few years ago, the company that you've probably heard of, Zillow, bought over 9,000 homes in a single quarter based off of suggestions made by its AI algorithm. These suggestions were made using faulty data. So when they actually purchased these homes and went in to renovate them and resell, they ended up with a loss of an estimated $3 billion in operations because the AI model didn't know and didn't incorporate data on the amount of repairs that would need to be done, the quality of those homes, the quality of the market, and a number of different factors that it simply wasn't educated or enabled to use in making these decisions. So naturally, Zillow, we all know them today, they recovered. However, issues like this can happen to any company and can be world-ending for companies that don't have that same amount of capital as a company like Zillow. So when you're looking at making decisions using artificial intelligence and machine learning, you really want to make sure that you're doing that with the best educated models that are using the most accurate data, the most up-to-date, and also data that is standardized and makes sense across these computer models. So with that, bad AI foundation really just leads to bad decision making. But with trusted data, your initiative and any initiative can really succeed. Organizations like yours are implementing initiatives to meet today's business challenges all across the business. Again, 91% of leading businesses have ongoing investments in artificial intelligence, anywhere from the deep learning, again, the chatbots, the data mining. AI is becoming so prevalent across so many different aspects of our world. So with trusted data, these initiatives can really succeed. And for that trusted data, you really need integrity. You need data integrity. Data integrity is data with maximum accuracy, consistency, completeness, and context that will enable you to make confident business decision-making. So when we talk about data integrity and data enrichment, what are we talking about? Enrichment is the process of adding color, context, and consistency to the data that you currently have, making what you already have better through the addition of relevant, high quality information. Trusted third party data is something that Precisely offers at a global scale. With our curated data sets, we can add thousands of additional attributes to really any solution, enabling faster and more confident decision making. Our portfolio is separated into 6 main categories: the address and property data, boundaries, demographics, points of interest, streets, and risk. With all these combined, we can create a holistic view of any location and any of your customers where they live, play, and work. So with that, we're going to go into some examples of how this data can be used and has been used on, a more small scale, but in an example that really is applicable at any level of business that you're looking at. So in our example, we're going to be looking at, this one is a little bit close to home. This was a new build on Fortune Street, happened to be in the lot right next door to me. So this was a vacant lot, empty field, absolutely nothing there, no utilities, so no electricity. So what they really needed to do was naturally get electricity to this vacant lot in order to build a home there. In order to do that, they really needed to bury some power cables. Now, you're probably wondering, where is this going? When we look at the situation as it was, the Fortune Street itself is made up, this is my street, it's made up of 4 properties. So looking at this in a sort of contextual, data-driven way, we can see our 4 properties here. And with the needs required for this vacant lot, we know that we needed to get power there. With the current existing power lines, it's hard to see in this imagery, but using the data that is available to your current utility companies, we can see where the lines currently are. So we have the line across the street, and then the lines feeding to each of the pre-existing homes on Fortune Street. This is something that we can know looking at this visually, looking at the aerial imagery, as well as with feet on the ground. But when we're talking about AI, we don't have that luxury. What the AI looks at, even if it's looking at all, is something more along these lines. There are image reading machines, but what we want to feed it is data. We want to be able to create our algorithms and make our decisions based on good data. So when we're viewing the scenario, really the AI is just using the data that it is given. In this case, the location of the power lines and the location of the homes. So when we add context to what a computer might read, we can add things like the property boundaries. So we understand exactly where the power needs to reach to get to this home. In this example, again, this is a very small scale example. It's a small neighborhood, a single home. But when we're talking about the development of new subdivisions, of entirely new neighborhoods, it's the same idea, it's the same situation at a much larger scale. So when we add in further context, we have all of the different addresses affiliated with this build that might be impacted by the addition of this extra power line all throughout Fortune Street. And then we can add more and more information as we go. So when the new build needed to bury their power line, naturally that burial would have to either go through the street or go through this property here, this 2 Fortune Street, which you can see, that's my house. So in order to bury those lines, they would need to get permission from the homeowner. In this situation was myself. I live in a small town, it's not too big of a deal for someone to knock on my door. But if this was, again, in a larger area, a more populated network, that's not always an option. And if you're trying to save money, that's definitely not an option because that requires your basic man hours. So in having additional information on the property ownership, as well as information about those properties, utility companies are able to make these advanced decisions and feed this data into their own AI algorithms. So in this situation, you know who you need to speak to, you know the property lines, and you know the basic measurements of properties in order for laying down electrical lines. However, if you're an electrical company, you might also want to know more about the different homes that you're servicing. Anything from the size of the homes, I live in the northern country, so naturally the heat bills in the winter can be very high. So you might want to know how large of an area is being heated, how is it being heated, how many stories can impact your energy levels based on different usage. All of these factors can really impact how an electrical company is viewing and using their offerings. So again, with burying the power lines, when we keep adding context here. So we add in, once they've built the home itself, we add in the building footprints. So we have even more information on where those lines are trying to get to. Now, what they ended up doing, to make a long story short, is they buried the power line down along this property, the 2 Fortune Street. And then Carlos over here said, hey, can you bury mine as well? It's really long going across the street. Let's see if we can do that. So we have an additional power line present going across the street. But when you look at how that build ended up in the end, you can see where they placed the meter. Now, where they placed the meter is particularly close to the property line itself. So if we go back and look at where the properties are, that meter is right along the corner here. Now, if you're using an AI algorithm to try and assign different meter bills and electricity bills based on any number of simple equations like distance measurements, you might see a meter here, and running a distance calculation, you may not get the house that it's actually affiliated with. Because if you look just across the street, Carlos over here is actually a lot closer to where that meter was placed than the house that it serves. So if you were to run an AI metric or AI calculation to assign an electricity, a power bill, even say a water bill, any type of bill to any sort of meter that you have ID'd by latitude and longitude coordinates, then you need this additional context and information. You would need to know whose property these are actually in, and you need to be able to do that with confidence. So moving forward, they put the meter down, we buried the lines, all is well. With proper geocoding, you can assign the coordinates of this meter to the home it resides in with the additional information of those property boundaries and the addresses affiliated with them. So all is well, that ends well. So with that said, data enrichment can be very easy with the right tools, but it can also be very complex. In a situation as simple as the one I just described, 4 homes, 1 new build, 1 power meter, it's surprising the amount of complexity you can get just based on a number of assumptions. If we assume that the house closest to the meter is the one the bill is going to be sent to, we get the wrong house. And Carlos will probably be calling your power company very angry that he's getting 2 power bills, one that's not his. So even something as straightforward as, what do I need to pay for my electricity? When we're feeding AI algorithms or any sort of computer-generated codes with poor information, it can get very messy very quickly. So one of the things that Precisely does is we created the Precisely ID, and we assigned this unique identifier to every address across the US. And so this identifier is consistent. It doesn't change even if the name of a street changes. And it's also relevant. It connects that address to any number of data sets that we currently offer. Anything around the address itself, the building, the property line or parcel, as well as are there any businesses there? What are the demographics affiliated with it? What neighborhood is that property within? All of this can be tied together using this ID to save companies from doing the really clunky and time-consuming spatial analysis that typically is done when you have an address and you're trying to figure out what property it falls within. So with AI limitations, you really want to make sure that you're addressing those limitations head on and from the bottom of the barrel, essentially. You really want to make sure that you're using data enrichment with the high quality data, with data that is enriched, that's given additional context, that is accurate, that is relevant, and that is current. With this, you can model your accuracy and increase performance. You can create faster model training because the model is working off of consistent data. It's not having to learn multiple rules for a single data set. Everything is in a single standard. And you're as well able to create easier model maintenance as you go. There's much less that you need to maintain. There's much less that you need to train a model on. So good AI foundation really leads to greater innovation. So really, when we're talking about AI, there are three things you need to consider. You need to make sure that the data you're using is complete. It has all of the critical information and relevant data, as well as that data itself is current and relevant. You need to make sure that the data that you're using is trustworthy, that it has a history of being high quality, as well as that it's contextual. You need to make sure that the data is actually has the proper information for your use case. So we have three key takeaways today. What is data enrichment? Data enrichment is appending relevant context from your additional sources. How does data enrichment improve your AI? It improves your accuracy, your performance, and your utility across all of your applications throughout your business. And how does it benefit you and your business? It improves your outcomes, saves you money by requiring less boots on the ground, less human interference, and it adds user trust when your end users are seeing the output that is a higher quality, that's more accurate, and again, more consistent, then your customers will gain trust in your systems. So feel free to reach out to us at Precisely for any questions. You can go to precisely.com to view demos. You can read our white papers and see some of our case studies, or feel free to contact us. Feel free to call our number anytime to set up an exploratory conversation with some of our people and get in touch via precisely.com. Thank you for your time.